before I get into my sermon, I want to add a little disclaimer because I went to seminary with one of the foremost Revelation scholars. And so I just want to remind everyone that the rapture is not a thing. It was made up in the 1830s, and we do not have to worry about being snatched or left behind. So that is bad theology and a misinterpretation of our biblical texts. And as Lutherans, we believe in sola scriptura, we believe in the Bible, and not necessarily panic that is spread. So just if you want to talk more, I am happy to talk more. So no rapture. I don't remember the first time that I saw Mount Rainier. Maybe it's because every time I see it, I am still amazed and awestruck and dazzled, especially if it's been a little while because it's been rainy or cloudy, or I forget sometimes being in this valley, it's not always visible. It surprises me. I think sometimes, I'm sure you've experienced this with visitors too, when you're like, oh, have you seen our mountain? And they're like, there's not a mountain. And you have to wait a few days and you're like, look. And they're like, how is that there the whole time? It's just, sometimes you just can't see it. I always love to look at it. I think about this past year during Easter sunrise service at the Mountain View Cemetery. It was just so gorgeous watching the sun slowly reveal the mountain that I already volunteered myself to do the sunrise service. So I'm going to be there. I hope you will too. And maybe it won't be there, but the possibility that it is enough to get me out of bed at very early in the morning. And I always yearn to see more. There's times where I think like yearn a little bit less. I'm worried I'm gonna cause an accident when I'm driving north and I'm like, is it out? Is it out? Maybe I can see it. Is it out? I should wait till I'm driving south and then I can look at it more beautifully. But I'm always sure, like maybe I can. The other day I was driving to Buckley, I think Buckley, and it was kind of cloudy, but I was like maybe, and because I knew where it was and I was hopeful, I could see it kind of through the clouds, just the snowy part, not even the top, but I knew it was there. There's a mural in Sumner that I love, and I'm sure you've heard the phrase elsewhere, but it says very large on a wall, it says, live like the mountains out, because our mood changes. It changes everything. I haven't quite gotten to that living that way, but I hope to. It makes sense then that I thought first about Rainier when I read about God's holy mountain. Isaiah's, of course, not talking about Mount Rainier, but he uses this mountain to talk about God's kingdom and the way that it will draw everyone in, that it will call to us. And God's kingdom is also like Rainier because it doesn't always seem like it's there. When it's been dark or cloudy for a very long time, sometimes we can forget. Sometimes we miss it. It surprises us. As we hear from Jesus in Matthew, we will be surprised at how God's kingdom just shows up. I know, though, that when it does show up, I always love to see it. That when God's kingdom shows up in this world, it is beautiful. And I long to put myself in places where there's a chance that I might see it again. And most of all, God's kingdom is like Mount Rainier because I am yearning every day to see it, cranking my neck in unusual places just in case it might be out. Paul knows that we are all yearning to see God's kingdom, that we are all yearning for good news, that we are yearning for the day that Isaiah promises will come soon. And so today, Paul gives us this advice. Paul says, live like the mountain is out. Paul says, wake up. The new day, it is already coming. The old day is past. Paul is talking about how there was an old age, and with the death and resurrection of Jesus, that old age has come to a close. And now the new age where Jesus Christ is king of the universe, that age has already started. But we have to wake up. We have to shake away the dreams of the old age so we can live into the new age, the new day that is dawning. A day where all are fed, a day where all are housed, a day where no one dies of violence. Paul says that could be today. That could be now. If we wake up, if we all decide that now is the time when maybe we shouldn't have weapons of war just out amongst all of us. Maybe we shouldn't have those anymore so that people just die needlessly. We could live in that world. Maybe we should live in a world where some people have, maybe we don't want to live in a world where some people have so much more than they could possibly ever spend in their entire lifetimes, and others have nothing. Maybe we decide that's not the world we want to live in. We want to live in God's holy mountain. And how do we get there? We wake up and we say, this is the new day that God has called us to. Jesus adds urgency. Don't miss it. Keep looking, keep working, keep coming. This day is dawning. This day is coming. I will be the first to tell you that it is hard to wake up. I'm not a morning person. I actually slept in this morning. I sleep in a lot because my bed is comfy and it's a little chilly outside and it's warm and I'm cozy. And the day seems a little daunting. And let's be honest, the kingdom of heaven seems a little scary too when we listen to Matthew's words. And it's true. I think God's holy mountain is maybe not a destination that everyone wants to go to. For example, people who profit from incarcerating others are not going to like God's holy mountain. People who are investing in multiple homes so that they can jack up the prices are not going to like a place where everyone has a place to live. These systems that continue warmongering and the people who profit from making weapons are not going to enjoy God's holy mountain. There are forces at play that try to make our beds and this dream seem very, very comfy. And it's easy to stay here. And then we hear from Paul again, the new day is here. Let's get going. Let's live honorably. Let us live like the mountain is out, like the kingdom is here, like the lives that we desire for ourselves and all of creation have already come. But even when we still sleep in, God's new day is still dawning. Even when the clouds are heavy, God's mountain is coming even closer. Even when we don't quite believe, God still beckons. If you're not sure, then I am a professional mountain gazer. And I have a few times where I've seen the mountain, and hopefully it calls to you. I think of a time when I was on internship, and I was in my office. I was editing a sermon. I just had I'd given a sermon on the Mount. If you think a sermon is hard, a sermon on a sermon, a little tricky. I was editing this sermon, and my secretary walks in, and she says, "Hey, there's a man here, and I don't know how you feel about giving money to people, but he says he's a veteran, and he's trying to get to this new program across the state, and he had to sleep outside last night, and he's hoping for a little bit of money so he can stay in a different shelter. It charges $5 a night. I don't have any cash on me, but he seems really sincere. And I happen to just have done a funeral, and somebody paid me $100 in cash in 20s. And I said, sure, I have this money. It's right here. Sure. And she went out, and I turned back to my sermon. And what line was I on? The line where Jesus says, Give to all who beg from you. And there it was, living into a world where I had enough and someone had less. And for one moment, I knew that that's where that money was supposed to go. There wasn't any part of me that's like, well, I shouldn't give cash. Do I have anything else on me? What's it gonna do with it? I just, there it was, the mountain. I think of after 9/11, families of victims who were killed, they also afterward went over to Iraq because they wanted to say, our tears are not a cry for violence. And our children died, but that doesn't mean yours should too. There's the mountain. There's a synagogue in Chicago. I don't mean to cry every week. I'm sorry. It's not, it's just so beautiful, right? It's so beautiful. It calls to me. I want to be part of it. There's a synagogue in Chicago, um, very close to where Barack Obama used to live. It was very nice. They had beautiful landscaping. But then the rabbi said, you know, why do we have all this beautiful landscaping when there are people in this neighborhood who are hungry? And so he took a staff and he said, this is like the staff of Moses, and it's going to part the waves of poverty in our community. So within 1 mile of this staff, no one goes hungry. And they turned their whole landscaping into a community garden, and they gave it out for free. There it is, the mountain. There was a priest who he gathered a couple others, and they, in the dark of the night, they went through some barbed wire fencing and onto a Air Force base, even though there were signs that said, if you trespass, you will be shot on sight. But they went anyway, and they went up to one of the new drones, and they started hammering on it. And when they were, of course, arrested, and people said, what the heck are you doing? They said, well, the Bible told us to beat our swords into plowshares. So we thought we should get started. People of God, may we wake up each day to God's new dawn. May our hearts be opened, but not broken. May we be overwhelmed by God's love and justice, and not the sorrows of this world. And may we live each day like the mountain is out. Thanks be to God.